Hello and welcome to the Hoop Troop podcast. I am Matt O'Connor, and joining me as they do on all of our shows is my cousin Luke Drobner.
What's up, guys?
And my brother Mike O'Connor.
Stuff. We're back.
We are back. Yeah, it's been since we actually went back and looked at this. It's been since after the first round of the playoffs.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's been a while. But we've had a lot of stuff going on. We're all progressing in life, and everyone has their issues that we're working around. Between Luke being 3 hours behind us, and then you finished up grad school. Fortunately, a lot of these hurdles are now in the rear view, so hopefully we're able to get more of these back out there, especially as the season approaches. But yeah, so kind of like you said, we've missed a ton. I'm sure everyone listening to this has listened to so many other basketball podcasts about the end of the playoffs, the beginning of the offseason, and now ultimately the Olympics, which just ended this weekend. So we were talking about it. I think probably our best course here. Let's just stick with what's recent. We'll obviously dip in talking about that, about some of the stuff that did happen in the playoffs and whatever. And then look at just some highlights from the offseason, some rookies, whatever, summer league. So with that, I'm going to open the floor, and I feel like the best way to do this is just Team USA won gold. Everyone kind of expected it. It still felt pretty triumphant. What were your takeaways from, and now I'll let you go, just the lead into the Olympics, some of the play-in games and everything like that, just the tune-up ones, but then also when they had to dial in the last few rounds. What are your takeaways from watching these guys play?
My takeaway was that Victor Wembanyama is prepared to be an all-star, all-NBA player come this upcoming season. I think a lot of the announcers and commentators were saying that there are times when he just looks unstoppable. And I think playing in that FIBA role helps him because he's probably a little more familiar with those rules, playing those rules his whole life, and then now 1 year in the NBA. So I think he's going to make an adjustment. I think something else was he cried as they took silver, which is like a huge accomplishment, but he was still really upset that they didn't win gold. And I think that speaks a lot about his character. And so I think that's the scary thing.
He had a pretty crazy quote after like all of it. Everyone was asking him and they're like, what do you take away from this? I think something about it was like the Spurs culture is about like, did you grow from whatever the experience was? And like, obviously the answer for him playing in this Olympics is yes. But like, right. Then they're asking him and like, he's basically saying like, I'm going to get better. And, the next time around, everyone should be, afraid, I think he said. And they're like, well, are you talking about FIBA? Or are you talking about the NBA? And he goes, he's just like everyone. Everyone should be afraid. And he's right. Like, that's the thing. A lot of times you're like, all right, that could be cocky. And like, I don't buy into it. 4 years from now, assuming he's healthy,
hard buy.
He's going to be the best player in the world in like 2 years, let alone 4.
I think the only thing that stands in his way is himself, like, and his health. It's scary. Like he's just so ripe. I don't mean to be the downer, but he's so ripe for something awful happening to his legs.
Well, the injury thing is, it would be devastating. But the injury thing is one thing. I think the other thing is where he chooses to develop his game. Because obviously, you are 7'4". You could contribute to like try and get a little better in the post. Because honestly, like if you are that big, you're going to kind of have to be around there. His shot is good enough, but you still could work on it. His ball handling, everything, like he definitely wants to be more of the first option where you have the ball in your hand versus, I don't think anyone would shame, Shaquille O'Neal, Dirk Nowitzki, guys like that who weren't always the first point of contact with the ball, but ultimately was the one who finished the play. And I think that there's definitely different schools of thought of how he should progress his game. But to me, watching him play, his biggest flaw is when he gets way too caught in like the hero ball and like, give me the ball, I'm going to go try and get a basket. I think that's the one pitfall he might find is if he's just focused on being the guy instead of just go be the best Dirk Nowitzki you can be, and you're going to be the best player of all time. That's how I look at it.
I think he's definitely a power forward. He's like a Dirk or a Kevin Durant or something like that. I don't see him ever being like a Shaq or an Embiid or some type of like post-up type player. I don't know if I can see that, but
no. But at the same time, I think if he develops that back to the basket, turnaround, whatever, like literally practice the
like
shot, the one leg like fade. That is the most. If he was able to develop that, that's the most unstoppable shot ever. Honestly,
being that tall,
yeah, it honestly might be, and so that's why I'm like, I think his focus right now is way too much. And it's kind of like how I feel like a lot of guys are with centers that come in and they're like, oh, you got to focus on, your 3-point shot. It's like, no, these guys are rim running centers. They're not built for that. And they've put so much of their effort into that rather than just like learn how to do a dream shake and like flip it in. And I'm afraid he's going to fall way too much into like weirdly wanting to be like Allen Iverson and dribble the ball and change the game that much. And that can come. You can work on that. But in the interim, like I think the big thing right now is you just excel your game that way. And then, 4 years from now, I think France could win the Olympics because to steer back into what we just watched, everyone that was closing out the games for Team USA on the older side, even Booker is in his 10th year. Like guys that are, I know he's not saying that is skewed, but still.
I think when we think about Team USA, obviously unreal talent. When you think about the starting lineup, Curry, LeBron, Booker, Kevin Durant, Embiid. I don't know if Embiid's going to be back for the USA. I think there are rumors that he'll end up going to be his own player for Cameroon or something like that.
Well, and he'll be 34, 35 at that point. The rate he gets injured and everything, like he might be done with basketball by that point. You never know.
You're going to say something like?
No, like exactly what Matthew's saying. Like, do we even want him? Like in that, whatever the makeup is of that team. It's interesting though, because I mean, Devin Booker is clearly going to be like and Tatum are going to be the kind of touchstones for both generations, and then we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I don't. The discussion isn't around like who's going to win in 2028, but Wembanyama and the rest of France, I don't know.
Sarr, Wembanyama, Koulibaly.
Well, that's the thing. The French team, I mean, it's a shame that a lot of their guards didn't pan out because let's say just Killian Hayes, Frank Ntilikina, guys like that actually materialized in the NBA. Yeah, that team would be really good. I think everyone would agree the shortcoming for France was their guards.
Yeah, but I don't even think like Frank played poorly in the Olympics. They made silver and, could he be better? Sure. And he's still young. I don't know how old is Frank Ntilikina, 24, 25? I don't know.
Yeah, he's probably like 26 at this point.
He'll play a couple more years. You even see guys like Dante Exum who played for Australia this year.
Perfect example.
High draft pick, didn't work out at first, went and played in Australia where he's from, then made it back to the NBA. And obviously he's a role player for the Mavericks now, and he's not like a point guard dominant player like you expect someone to be when they get drafted in the top 10, but there's still chances that guys like Frank Ntilikina can find a way back to the NBA and really develop. Evan Fournier was playing point guard for them, so know.
I mean he was good he had some big shots for them, so maybe it's just the FIBA game is better for him.
Germany when he hit the
the half court shot, crazy. But
this is a former Knick who, Oh
yeah.
I appreciate you wearing the hat, by the way.
So it's funny. It's been sitting in my closet, and like I think after the end of the season, I kind of put it away, and I had some unfortunate news about my Minnesota Vikings today, and I'm like, you know what? Can't even look to football. It is now basketball, and the Mets suck. It's basketball season already. So
always basketball season.
Duggar back out. Yeah, the Knicks will be back in no time. They announced the preseason schedule and the NBA Cup now. They changed the name of it. Some Christmas Day games, everything like that. So I'm getting hyped. But anyway, back to the Olympics. I digress.
Yeah, Team USA is going to look way different in 2028, and I think that will be for everybody.
What do you think about the fact that realistically, the way that FIBA works with the World Cup and then the Olympics, I think it used to be every 2 years, so there would be a gap year between the World Cup and the Olympics, and now I think it's just one after another in consecutive years. I think it's like the third year and then the fourth year is the Olympics.
Right.
And I think a lot of NBA players don't want to sacrifice consecutive off seasons to play for Team USA, especially when like the World Cup doesn't really matter to them as much.
Yeah.
How do you feel about, and again, I think it's something that a lot of these other teams benefit from. These guys are constantly playing together every year in FIBA competition. I think part of the reason Team USA struggled a little bit is, one, they're not used to the rules, but that's because a lot of them don't play FIBA. And also they don't play together. Like none of these guys are on the same teams and they have no chemistry.
Yeah.
What do you think about getting some of these younger guys who are now going to, realistically,
not even about
Durant, LeBron, Steph, all these guys aren't going to be on the team don't you have to start getting these guys working into the system?
Yeah, I think it has to, it's not like, oh, we should start recruiting Cooper Flag now so we can build the Team USA roster around Cooper Flag. You got to get guys in the building, in the training camps, right? And work together, right? Like we need, I think there needs to be a atmosphere around USA basketball where people aren't forfeiting their summers, like you say, but here I
And I don't want
am
to say that's a bad
now.
way of putting it. I'm more saying like
Right,
to train for the NBA season. Like obviously
right,
the same way we just said for Victor, this is a growth experience. Like I think everyone benefits from playing in it. But yeah, you
right.
don't have the same off season you would if you were just dedicated to the
USA
NBA.
basketball needs to say, okay, well, LeBron can go work with his personal trainer during the offseason. We need to make it so the USA camp has the best trainers and the best medical staff and all this stuff. So guys want to be there, right? Like USA basketball needs to place where you want to work out and you get better for the NBA season and you work out with all these other guys who are also competing in the NBA. And then you just kind of build your roster from that. People who are showing up to the camps and
And I
working together.
think that's a huge point that I personally agree with, and I think a lot of people think back in the Coach K days, you used to have to basically try out, and you had to earn a spot, and
You should.
a lot of
You
it.
should.
Part of your what benefited was your if you were an experienced player who played with Team USA a lot, then you got the benefit of the doubt, and it helped you and your status in making the team. This
Right.
team, I'm saying Joe Schmo, but anyone unaffiliated with Team USA could have just been like, yeah, I'm one of the best players. I'm on the team now. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. Like, I think that's not how you build a team. And I also think that's part of why you have such an issue with what's my identity on this team? What's my role? And let's face it, a lot of these egos clashed. Like, not every player was willing to buy into what their role was. Now, granted, the ones where it mattered totally bought in, but like some of them, not so much.
There's a
And
reason why we had the starters and the bench at the end, right? Like the guys who bought in were the starters, and the guys who didn't really buy in were on the bench or they didn't play.
I
Like
mean,
Tatum,
Embiid, you can make the argument that he didn't overly buy into his role and
yeah,
everything,
but
but
AD and Bam were taking a lot of those minutes, right? Like unless
I
we
mean, and he
really
got
target
benched.
them
He got
scoring.
benched an entire game. So yeah, it's a good point.
because I mean, AD came in and basically was just like a glorified rebounder and blocker. That's all he needed to do, and he was
But
doing it
He
super,
was.
super well.
at that.
I mean, he was. I'm gonna say the fourth or fifth best player on Team USA.
Because he was doing his
Oh,
he stayed in his lane the whole time. It's the same thing with Devin Booker. It's the same thing with I mean, honestly, Steph kind of in the same way. Like Steph didn't play that well, but he was not trying to be the point guard. He was letting LeBron take the ball up. I don't know. I exactly what you guys were saying.
Yeah, and I think
Gotta buy
part of
your
it
role.
is, and right, and I think part of it too is in the NBA, they're not accustomed to having to do the role player stuff, which is why I do think them bringing in Drew and ultimately bringing in Derek White to replace Kawhi, which just crazy that to think about this team if you had Kawhi Leonard, but anyway. I think having guys like that you could throw in to be like, all right, go guard their best perimeter guy, go whatever, and then stand in the corner, they kind of are used to that. Telling Devin Booker to do that, yeah, he bought right in, but other guys didn't. And I don't think Tatum loved it, which obviously he got benched in some pivotal games, and I think that's obviously been a big talking point. Like Halliburton obviously hardly sniffed the court. There are a
Yeah,
few things.
I think Halliburton was just so like I think Halliburton's someone who buys in perfectly to this type of idea, right? Like you earn your spot by playing your role.
Yeah, I think he was just happy to be there.
And I think that when you're behind a Steph and a LeBron and a Booker who's buying into his shooting guard role, right? It's just so hard to find playing time behind those guys. And so I think moving forward,
Yeah, I hate to admit that I think Brunson would. We if Brunson was on this team, I think he would have been in a similar position. Which
there's
was
no way he's finding minutes.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Tatum is you look at the guy and everyone's saying he was snubbed, and we'll talk about the finals a little bit, but obviously you're coming off of a championship season with the Celtics where you're pretty much the premier guy. I know Jaylen Brown won finals MVP, but whatever. Tatum is the guy on that team.
Yeah.
Going from that to not playing, and like realistically, Steve Kerr was kind of experimenting and ultimately realized like he was at a 10-man rotation no matter what, and most of the time, based on the role and who else was playing, Tatum was 11. And so, yeah, obviously on pretty much any other country or any other team, he's playing. But in the system, like, what are you, and especially when Durant was coming off the bench too, are you not going to play LeBron? Are you going to cut LeBron's minutes? No. Are you going to cut Durant's minutes? No. Are you going to, I guess the only one you could really make a case for is Anthony Edwards struggled at points. You could have cut his minutes, but in the flow of an offense, you really going to do that? Like, I don't know. Like, if you're just going to have that short of a leash with Edwards, especially when he comes in the second quarter, like, at that point, what are you doing?
Even then, it's like throw in Drew Holiday, throw in Derek White.
Right.
Booker can be put back into the game, right? So
Right. You look at how the other stars are playing, and you're like, all right, how do we complement? LeBron is on a heater right now passing. Let's get our shooters in. Tatum, sorry, you're not one of the best shooters. Steph is on an absolute heater. All right, let's get our defenders in. KD is going off. All right, let's get, our defensive guards in there and,
yeah, I think the way you could kind of maybe make the argument for Tatum seeing more minutes is you could play small. Not every team we played had like this huge big guy on their rosters. So it's like maybe against South Sudan, you didn't want to play our centers big minutes, injury concerns or whatever. Why not just throw Tatum in at power forward and bump LeBron or KD in at center?
And that is what they did. And Embiid got benched that game. And again, that's kind of where I'm like, I think Steve Kerr, there were a ton of flaws in the way he coached these games, and I think his rotations were bad, and I think a lot of his system was an issue.
He's in the same situation as all these players, though. Like, he has no idea what he's doing with this
Except
roster.
he's not. He's been coaching Team USA for a long time. Like, you can instill something that
Team
works.
USA changes every event, so it's like...
Yeah.
I'm glad he made tough decisions, though. Like, it seems like he stuck with what he was doing and kept, like, a good culture around the idea that, like, you may not play and I don't care. And at least he kept that.
That's a really good point. And it's something that I've kind of seen people saying, like some of the pundits saying, is that, yeah, when you're coaching for a gold medal, it's so different than coaching for an NBA championship. Like, you don't have an 82-game season. You have 6 games. That's all it is. Your goal is win today. Win this game and move on. And so you kind of have to leave the rest of it at the door. You can't be like, oh, well, he was this, so he deserves it. Like, yeah, in the NBA, that's so different where obviously, all right, fine, we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt here. He deserves a little more time, blah, blah, blah. No, if it's not working, you're sitting. Or if I found the right combination and you're not in it, then sorry. Like, the math isn't working and you're out. So I give him credit there, but I do think, like, some things he definitely could have adjusted. Like, there were times where Edwards was struggling and he just left him out there too long. It's like, well, Steph just had 26 points in the first half. Why is he sitting so long right now? Like, little things like that where I was just like, ooh, we're trying to come back and beat Serbia and go to the gold medal match. Like, what are you doing, Steve?
We did not look sharp in that Serbia game. I don't think there were very many people who...
No.
I'd say myself.
No, but, and again, you weren't watching that as much. You got in for the end of it, Luke, just because the West Coast issue. Yeah. That was, and I don't think it's hyperbole, the second best basketball game I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm really trying to think of realistically stakes, everything. I think, maybe not second. I think the Kyrie shot in 2016, for what that meant for the NBA, for LeBron, like the history of the league, that to me is number one. I think you can make the case for Chris Jenkins on Villanova hitting that game winner in the college championship. Again, but this is just like, I'm trying to think of big premier shots that won things. And those are kind of the top of the list. I don't know what else I really have. Like the Jimmy V one, I guess, like where Jim Valvano goes running out. Right. That's what I mean. So, like, of the ones that at least have been alive for it, but even have the wherewithal to go back and look at it and look at big shots, like
Jordan cementing the sixth.
Yeah, the push off. Yeah, I mean, there's a few things, but those
I like Matthew calling it a push off.
He did push off, but also the one where he comes across the lane and then does the fist pump, like that one there too. Yeah, he's hit a few big shots, like absolutely. But then this, like, I think this is very much. Right? Am I missing something?
And no. You compound it with the golden dagger, and I think that it was like magical the last 2 games I thought.
Yeah. I mean, it was so fun to watch. I think because it was basically an all-star game, but everyone cared. And I'll even take it a step back. If everyone in an all-star game cared, you'd have two of these Team USA teams basically going against each other. So that would obviously be better. But in this setting, when do you ever see the death lineup of, oh God, here comes LeBron for a big clutch layup, here comes Steph, Kevin Durant doing that step back deep two? Like, it was so awesome. Like, it was one of the I feel like for myself personally, one of the most fun times I've ever had watching basketball. It was just so cool.
So I have a.
Sorry you missed
I-
it, Luke. Sorry to just totally rub it in your face.
My question
Okay.
is, does it inform the next couple years in the league for you? Does it inform you that like, hey, these handful of people actually have some gas in the tank and they're going to be on contenders moving forward? Are any of them? Do you think it behooves them to maybe test their legacy and like play together? I don't. Do those things come to mind or not
I think
really?
the biggest takeaway is Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker buying into this role player role is going to make the biggest impact on his NBA team. When you think about their roster and the way it's constructed and what they really need, the Phoenix Suns, Devin Booker playing a more of like a role player type role can mean a lot to that team because we don't know what Bradley Beal is going to look like. Kevin Durant obviously needs a shot, and so does Devin Booker. But if Devin Booker can find new ways to score 20 points a game rather than needing the ball and running all this pick and roll, the sky's the limit for them.
And I think the big thing on that is his defense. If he plays defense like he did for Team USA for the Suns, that is a game changer. Because let's face it, everyone would say it, they are not a defensive minded team. Their whole goal is to we're going to shoot you out of the gym and that's going to be it. I think his role obviously definitely changes. I mean, not playing with the same Team USA roster, but yeah, Durant next to you, but for 82 games, he's not always going to be that same high volume guy, give you the ball. Like the usage is not going to be there for him. Beal, like you said, is a totally different story. So Booker probably is going to have the ball more, but if he can, like you said, come up with different ways to get those points, and it's not just so dribble, 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 shoot, it's going to make it easier on him and easier on the team. So yeah, totally. I think that was a huge takeaway.
I think my thinking is like if Beal says I'm more comfortable with the ball, Devin Booker can say, fine, I'll stand in the corner and shoot threes, and I'll do it the most efficient way I possibly can.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think the Suns benefit from this a lot too, just because that experience with Booker and Kevin Durant continuing to like build their chemistry and everything after last season.
Yeah.
I think it's huge, and it demonstrates that all right, I was willing to sacrifice here, I'm willing to sacrifice now for the Suns. So
Right.
I think both of them probably learned a lot from this, and I think it's going to carry them into the season and the offseason and everything like that. So yeah, I think the Suns are big winners. I think Rob Pelinka is a huge loser out of this. No, I do. I think they're positive and negative takeaways from this. I think LeBron and Anthony Davis being two of the top, however you want to say it, 5 players on the team, whatever, closing out games for this stacked Team USA team and like being 2 of the most valuable players on the team, and then being a play-in team in the NBA. How did you botch this so bad? And I understand the Russ trade with everything that's going on, but you're kind of past that at this point. You could have developed a better roster. You could have put a better roster around them than you have. It's the truth at this point.
Yeah.
They're
made a lot of
Pelinka's
mistakes.
failing LeBron and Anthony Davis. And everyone, he had an out at first when it was like, all right, you have no picks, the Russ trade, blah, blah, blah. You could kind of blame LeBron.
Yeah.
Now it's on you. You didn't do
Yeah.
anything to fix this.
Yeah, they keep making moves. They keep trading for what seems like more valuable veterans and sacrificing their future. And I think when they won that championship in 2020, if they had just let the ship kind of sail, right? You know, we have some older guys, we have all our draft capital, all this stuff, and just kind of let everything, work out, it would have been better.
But if they kept Kuzma and Caruso, even 2 guys,
Yeah, that's what I
everyone
mean.
else
Just
could have walked. Yeah.
let it, let the ship sail its course, and you have a more competent roster. And also, I think the more moves you make, right, each consecutive move, we've traded for Russ, and now we've traded for D'Lo. That puts more pressure on these guys incoming, right? Because you try and make it work with Russ, and it's like, well, it's not a championship team, and that's the only expectation for the Lakers or whatever team LeBron is on. And then you bring in a guy like D'Lo who's supposed to fit better, but the expectations get even harder, and there's more stress, and then you see just huge collapses. D'Lo's so inconsistent; it's hard to figure out what's going on.
No, I do. I think that's a huge takeaway where they could be a contender. I mean, you see what they're able to do.
It
It's
takes a
just
whole
unfortunate. It's just
takes a whole
unfortunate
team.
that right, and that the team isn't assembled. It is such a botch on their part.
And it's sad as a consumer because like I don't even think this is that if they stay on the Lakers, I think we will wind up never seeing either of them achieve anything great ever again.
Yeah. No, that's
I honestly, even if they had played every move correctly and they had really built up the longest possible championship contender, I think the window is closed. Maybe they're a first round exit, maybe they're a second round exit. Play in, maybe not, but I still think that the LeBron era is over. He's 40 years old, and you see, like he's still incredible. He's still great, but he is 40 years old. He's not, 28-year-old LeBron who could literally carry a whole team to the finals all by himself.
yeah.
It takes a whole team, right? It comes down to everybody on that roster, and if they had made better decisions, the roster would be more complete than it is today.
They could, I do think, because I think a lot of teams have misplayed the new CBA, and part of the way that they've assembled this team, where all this money kind of comes off the books.
Pop Celtics.
I think, yeah, well, kind of, but they won a championship. So, like,
yeah, but
if you're gonna penalize yourself, you better win, and they did. So, like, good on them. But with the Lakers, I think part of them being stagnant here, teams are they're gonna be forced to course correct. And the Lakers are a team that might be able to benefit from that and be like, all right, well, you need to get rid of this salary, so we'll give you 2 seconds for a good player. Instead of, like they might have a little more leverage. So there are things like that fine. Maybe Pelinka has a plan on that front. I'm skeptical of that for sure. And this is me now trying to be, devil's advocate on just kind of why they went the way they went.
I also think, like, when do these pieces shake out of the woods? Like, I don't know, like, is it going to be next year when you make that move, and is it already too late? Right? Like,
Right.
at what point do you just say, I give up? It's time to start rebuilding.
Well, yeah. But the problem is, to do that, you have to trade Anthony Davis and even harder, LeBron James. So, like, who is going to be the GM to say, I traded LeBron James? No one. No one is going to want to be that guy. And LeBron's not going to flat out come out and demand a trade because of legacy. So they're kind of stuck with each other.
I think it also got a little bit more difficult because in the last 18 months, Anthony Davis has actually gotten good again. So we're kind of that's a little tough there. The one thing I push back on Luke about is I legitimately think with decent seeding, LeBron in the playoffs could actually, a 40-year-old LeBron could drive a team to win a championship.
100%. But when it comes to like a Western Conference, like let's say in theory the best 2 teams come out and play in the Western Conference Finals. Is LeBron the better of those 2 teams? Is LeBron the team?
But I would still argue with this stacked Olympics team and whatever, he still was probably the main reason they won every game. I know Steph hit the golden daggers and whatever.
Yeah.
Well, he was the most consistent, I think, is the best way of looking at it. Like, everyone else had their moments, but that team revolved around LeBron. Well, go.
Well, I don't want to I have a pivot a little.
Oh, go. No. That's fair. But basically what I was saying is, you still center your team around LeBron. He might not be the guy going for 45 to, like, win you the game, but you sure as hell know he's going to have some, like, crazy passes that got guys open. He's going to be drawing so much attention that, you build around him.
82 games in the playoffs is a lot for a 40-year-old, 41-year-old. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, it's the regular season that's the problem. I'm saying make the postseason. From there, fine. I trust him 100%. Sure. Yeah. No play-in nonsense. Like, got to be in realistically home court. But anyway, Michael, your pivot.
Well, you kind of, we were talking about like winners and losers of the Olympics. So
I think I know where you're going with this.
We have identified the Suns. Let's see if you know. So we've identified the Suns as a winner. We've identified Pelinka among the Lakers as losers. I think the Nuggets are a loser of the Olympics. Wow, is that what you saw?
The Nuggets? Why? What?
I think they're in deep trouble with Jamal Murray, and I think that was pretty revealing on the Canadian team. Or like Jamal Murray's just injured or hurt, and not. And I mean that's not good news for them, especially because I do not know who else is holding the basketball on that team, other than Jokic, him, and maybe Aaron Gordon. But right now, I'd say Aaron Gordon's the second best person on the Nuggets. Like, how are you winning like that?
We touched upon this, and I think I kind of held myself back. Aaron Gordon has always been the second best player on that team.
Nah, come on.
Because I feel like when we think, here's the best player on the team, and here's the second best player on the team, we think, here's the leading scorer, here's the second leading scorer. How come we never say, like, here's the guy who just does all the little things the right way to make the team better? And that's what Aaron Gordon does. He plays defense. He knows how to play with Jokic. He sacrifices for the greater good of the team. That's who Aaron Gordon is. He makes that team better by being the perfect role player. He's like a Derek White. He's like a Drew Holiday, right?
But
And you
I think what you're saying is definitely true. He absolutely, the role he plays absolutely makes them take that jump. The thing is, he's only that valuable to that team if the top two of them are cooking the way they did when they won the championship. Murray was great in that run. Ever since he's been horrible. And so when you have two guys that require such an offensive burden and then also just defensive attention that goes to them, it frees Aaron Gordon up to be so much more dominant in those roles that you're talking about. I don't know that he was always the second best. I think you could value and best, I think, are two different arguments. Yeah, he could be the second most valuable, but I think Jamal Murray is still, like, personally, and I honestly would say arguably he's more valuable anyway, but if his scoring is on, you need a guy scoring. It's like it's like Kyrie next to LeBron on those Cavs teams, and then Aaron Gordon's Kevin Love. Yeah. And you could argue Kevin Love was more important because of everything he did down low, and the rebounding, the shooting, the passing.
Kyrie was more important on that team than Kevin Love.
So I think it's similar.
I think the other point that I also tried to make was, one, we talk about this new CBA all the time. They have two guys who play similar roles on huge contracts, Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray. Here we are saying that Jamal Murray is no longer consistent enough to be the second best player on this team. If you're the Nuggets, are you not looking to move one of those contracts?
You should.
And right. And so if you're the Nuggets, do you have enough confidence to say, Michael Porter Jr., we need you to step up and be the new Jamal Murray? Because Michael Porter Jr. chucks shots, and he's 6'10". If he just gets a little more consistent, gets a little more efficient, why can't he play that role?
So here's my thing. If you're going to have a guy who's kind of your chucker scorer, just heat check scorer,
sure.
If they're not defensive minded, which I think we would all admit, Murray and Porter are not defensive minded.
Porter can make highlight reel plays though. Like, he can come in for a big chase down block. He can go up a passing lane, or but he's not consistently defensive.
You need a better lockdown defender, a bigger, longer lockdown defender to counteract that. Yeah, but he's not going to guard wings. Like, he's not. He's too slow.
Well, that's why I think KCP, right?
The way that they're structured with, let's face it, the two pillars that we're saying you build around are Jokic and Aaron Gordon. You need a defensive-minded wing. You need a guy like a Derek White, Drew Holiday kind of that can guard 1 to 3 and guard it really well. Yeah. And so Michael Porter Jr. takes you away from that, from having that stretch wing who can play up and down size-wise.
I'm noticing the rise and fall, the signs of a falling empire, which is the offloading, the departure of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and the taking on of Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, it's not good. It's that is an absolute dark cloud.
So the early signs are there.
I kind of like Russell Westbrook. I know we all like, oh no, what type of role is he going to play? He's literally Aaron Gordon Jr., right? Like, Russell Westbrook is 6'4" Aaron Gordon.
Yeah, but that's a problem. That's not good.
Why?
If LeBron was 6'2", LeBron wouldn't be LeBron.
No, but
he would need to be a better shooter. He's not that good of a shooter.
Aaron Gordon can't play 48 minutes a game, so you put Russell Westbrook in.
Yeah.
Plays the same role.
Luke, for your sake and for his sake, I hope you're right. We've seen teams try and use him.
They do have
any which way, and it does not work.
They have a serious shooting problem because no KCP. They're expecting Christian Brown to step up into that same role. Christian Brown
on the young guys. They have nothing else going for them.
Payne Watson can't shoot.
No.
Jamal Murray's inconsistent. I think they're going to have serious problems. I think
they're going to have problems if Murray doesn't snap back. That's the biggest thing for them. He needs to be like the fringe all-star player he was when he was going for, bubble Murray. We basically need that again. And I don't know.
He's never going to get that to that level again. I think.
You think? I think it's possible. I think whatever he's dealing with,
kind of unrelated, but very similar. Gordon Hayward, who just retired.
Yeah.
Before that gruesome leg injury in his first game in Boston, he was incredible in Utah. Incredible. And that leg injury just absolutely took him out of it. I mean, there's a lot like the psychology of coming back from an injury like that. And Jamal Murray had a huge surgery and a major knee injury, right? So same type of situation. It just might be one of those situations where mentally he never finds that high level gear that he once had.
Yeah, it's possible, but I don't know. I'm still in the camp that I think they can figure it out, but
They
it's
still
going to
have
take a lot.
Jokic. I think we all
Yeah.
agree that you can't bet against the world's best player.
I mean,
LeBron
I think the
James,
Olympics
whoever
showed
it is.
he is the best player in the world. Like it's just he's unbelievable. Um, Pivoting to another winner and loser, I'm going to say the winner from this, the Eastern Conference, because of what Team USA did to the Celtics, just from strictly an emotional off the court sense, between not picking Jalen Brown and picking Derek White, and like Jalen Brown
Uh,
has been on a social media warpath about Nike and everything
Hanging out
Team
with Saudi
USA.
princes.
Yeah, but think about it. He has been fighting this because his teammate got picked over him. That is so much beef. Then benching Tatum in its own right, that affects his ego and everything. But
Yeah.
they do it by playing two of his teammates over him. Like everything they did,
There's going to be deep in the Celtics locker room, but I think those guys are professional.
I know, but Steve Kerr, Spolstra in particular, I feel like they were up to something where everyone was like, we got to slow these guys down. And the only way to do it, since, as you said, they signed everyone back, and yeah, they're going to have cap issues and whatever.
Huge cap
If
issues.
you break them up with ego, which is very possible coming off of winning a championship, I think everyone else in the East benefited from this. That yeah, they might be a little vulnerable,
It's
or it's
hard
going to
to
strengthen them. It could backfire, but I think the Eastern Conference are sneaky winners coming out of this.
I thought you were going to pivot a different way and go with the Miami Heat and talk about Bam Adebayo.
No, Heat are
No?
cooked. I'm out on the Heat. I mean, I know Heat culture and whatever, and I like their draft. Khalil Ware is going to be
Yeah.
good, but
I think
no,
I
spare
think
me.
the
Jimmy's old, washed, and doesn't have a new contract.
yeah, but I think the rumors are that they can hand the reins off to Bam. And I think yeah, Bam wasn't like this big superstar for the Olympic team. I don't think he did anything incredible, but he did show a little bit of what he could be, right? He was shooting threes. You don't really expect him to do that for the Heat. And,
Yeah.
bringing the ball up sometimes he would grab a rebound and take it down the court. He does that for the Heat, but maybe he can be like a point center. So I think there is a direction, especially because like 2028 Olympics are, coming up, the World Cup, whatever it is. Bam Adebayo played on the World Cup team, didn't he? With Brett
He
Brown and
did
Jaren
play on this.
Jackson.
Yeah, so I think he'll be back for sure. He'll probably be
Right.
healthy.
And so Spoelstra steps into that head coaching role. Why wouldn't they start, quietly working things out for the Heat there? You're on mute.
I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying about like building around Bam, but like, do you actually believe that when you say it? Do you
Yeah,
think
I
that
do.
you do?
Yeah, I mean, you have to find a way to pivot, right? From Matt just mentioned that Jimmy Butler's old. He didn't get a new contract extension. So if you're the Heat and you say, "What's next? Where do we go from here?" You've Hero, and you have to pick your next star. And I
But
think Bam is their next best player.
so I think it's going to require Bam with a something. Like it feels like Bam alone can't, and I don't
Yeah,
think Bam can ever be the number one either. Is my guess.
yeah.
And
Let's say
I'm kind of picturing them being another middling. I think we're gonna have another year of them at like hovering around the 8 seed, kind of.
right, but like let's say they have one bad year, right? Butler walks. It's Bam's first year as the number one. They're a lottery team. They get the seventh pick, let's say, and they draft someone who fits really well next to what Bam is doing. Is that not Bam and someone and Hero and the Spolstra's Dark Magic role players? Is that
Yeah.
not a competitive team?
I think if Jimmy walks, they're using that money elsewhere. They're going to sign someone else. They're not just going to let him go. And so I don't think they'll ever be a lottery team. And that's also just not Pat
I
Riley.
think.
He is not a team that will. He's
Uh,
not a guy who will settle for that.
I think.
Especially when you have a talent like Bam on your roster. There's no way.
I think we see a lot of these signing trades. It's like you can't just let a DeMar DeRozan walk. You can't just let a whoever walk, right? That's a lot of money that you could be using elsewhere. If there are two teams, if there are two GMs that would just like legitimately let someone walk and be like, I just don't give a fuck,
Yeah.
it's it's Ainge and it's Pat Riley. They're
Yeah.
like, fuck, leave,
Right.
right? And so I think Pat Riley would 100% let Jimmy Butler walk, and he would find a way to kind of work it back up. I don't think if the Heat do have this type of path where, they have to be bad for a little while, however long that they're bad, it's going to be a short while. It's going to be a year. It's going to be 2 years. It's not going to be 5 years. It's not going to take them very long to rebuild. And I think we've seen that in the past. They've done it in the past, right?
Yeah.
LeBron walked, Chris Bosh, I guess, retired, right? And they had like 1 or 2 years where it was like, right? And then they're right back up, So
Yeah.
who knows?
But no,
And
I
then
get what you're
it
saying.
might be better to let Jimmy Butler walk if you're going to get financially penalized, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to think of other major Olympic takeaways and what they mean for the league.
I have one.
Okay.
Another one who I think is a winner is I think Giannis reestablished to a lot of people that he's a top 3 player in the league. And I think, he's on the Greece team that doesn't move the needle,
bad.
but
Yeah.
I mean, he was unbelievable. Looked really healthy too. So like, it's one of those things where I'm actually sneaky rooting for the Bucks to kind of pull through and use his greatness to.
Yeah, Luke, I'm with you, and I think it still hinges on Dame. He didn't buy in last year. Let's face it. You can call it however you want to. Like ultimately, that's kind of what it boiled down to. He didn't buy in. Maybe he will now. Maybe he won't. But Giannis wasn't the problem last season. Obviously, he got hurt in the playoffs, and like that sucks. And so did Dame, for that matter. But like, it's not on Giannis. It never has been. Middleton's been a problem, just with injury and everything, and Dame didn't buy
same
in.
type of situation as Murray, right? It's hard to come back from a serious injury. And
Yeah.
it's been what, 2 years? And I also think the age at which you get injured, if you're 23 and you have to get knee surgery, it's easier to bounce back. If you're, I don't know, Middleton was like 31 or something like that, right? He was older. I don't know if he was 31. He was around 30. That's a lot harder to come back from. And so I'm concerned about their role players, right? If it's like you have Giannis and you have Dame, and then everybody else is considered their role players, right? Sure, Middleton might be able to give you 12 to 15. Who else? Is Brook Lopez? I guess on every other night, on occasion he can, but even then, like, who's going to space, spacing? I don't think they have space.
I think the Gary Trent signing is huge. DeLon Wright, I think they got a couple guys where I'm like, all right, actually, like, this works for me. They still have Connaughton. They still have like other guys like that. They added Taurean Prince, who, yeah, in a pinch, obviously you don't want him to be the guy, like a premier look, but yeah, he's a good fit. Like I think he totally on the wing matches up well. He'll be a better defender when you have Dame out there too. Like so things like that. I think they did add good pieces. You obviously lost some too, so I don't just want to like diminish that entirely. But yeah, I think they'll be okay. I think it's a question of what does a training camp with Doc Rivers look like? And is Doc Rivers going to blow some kind of lead again and just be a bad coach? Because that is, I mean, at this point, who are we kidding? Like, that's a legitimate possibility, if anything, not, I mean, that's probably a favored outcome if you were a betting person. So, like, I think they have a lot that they're up against. I think it could work. I think it starts with Dame more so than anyone else. And then from there, the role players kind of fall in the line.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Gary Trent was a little marginal. I know he's a good wide open 3-point shooter, but I think statistically outside of wide open looks, he's the worst 3-point shooter in the league or something like that. And so, I mean, if they can make it work, they can make it work. And when you have a Giannis and Dame type of combo, you're going to get a lot of open looks as Gary Trent Jr. So maybe it'll work. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
No, I know. And I think the other thing is you look at the way the East has retooled. As like you want to say that, all right, we have a year under our belt as the Bucks. We should be going in with a little more experience. We should be ready to go. You don't have that experience now. You really don't necessarily have that cohesion. And then on top of that, Sixers got better. I think everyone would agree. The Knicks got better. You could make the case that the Heat got better. Like everyone.
The Sixers have a bunch of guys who are all-stars and make big plays, but I don't feel the guys on the Sixers have the dog in them, right? Like if they have to play a gritty 7-game series against a Heat team or a Knicks team, or even just like try and slug one out against the Celtics, do they really have the longevity in a 7-game series, right? There's the playoff P and the Embiid injuries. It's like, can Embiid play a hard 40 minutes for a 7 game series, right?
Well, and even you look at their one series this year, Maxey was kind of the guy. That was the guy that everyone counted on. He was the one hitting the clutch shots. Like, he's going to be the one that ultimately, I think, shoulders that load. But yeah, you're right. Like, are they that much of a playoff threat? I don't know. Regular season, absolutely. They're a good team. Like, there's no doubt
They're
about
gonna be
it.
they're gonna have home court. They're gonna be a top 4 seed.
Yes,
Obviously.
definitely. Definitely.
They have an MVP candidate, right? So it's like hard not to be top 4, but
But that's why I look at this Bucks team and I'm like, you are realistically sitting at 4 looking up at the other 3.
yeah.
Assuming that those are the top 4 seeds. And even Cleveland, I know everyone's sleeping on Cleveland. Locking up Donovan
Yeah.
Mitchell again and getting another year under your belt. Darius Garland was so hurt last year. Mobley was really hurt last year. Allen missed time. Like, they're a
Yeah.
really good team. Orlando got better. Like, a lot of these teams in there that
Indiana
match
got
up
better.
pretty well with the Bucks. So I'm like, I don't know. I am
think
definitely in the camp
the
that,
middle of the East, 3 through 7 in the East got much better.
yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's the Celtics at the top and the rest of the pack. It feels like Celtics, Knicks, Sixers,
I think the
Bucks.
Celtics are still. I think they're still a step ahead. Although Porzingis obviously needed to have surgery and everything, like that is a huge variable because he's so important to that team. But realistically, and they just won the finals. I'm going to say they're still a step ahead. But
Yeah.
everyone, I don't think it's as big of a gap that we had last season. It's a little
No.
smaller. And so
That's what I really think the middle of the pack got much stronger.
yes, totally. And so I think, again, I know I was saying like the big winners are the East because the Celtics now, the chemistry and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, I look at what's going on with Philly where, yeah, they kind of benefited from this offseason big time with the Olympics and everything. So I'm a little more bullish on them than I think you guys are, but I think it does speak to the Bucks even more so. They're just stagnant to me. They're not
Yeah.
they're not in the best spot. And
That's
and they're on like the tipping point. They could easily dissolve after this.
It's a bad situation
Yeah.
in Milwaukee.
100%.
But it could, but maybe Giannis pulls one out. Maybe Giannis has the LeBron type season where he just wills the team.
Yeah.
So who knows?
So maybe the winner in that situation is just Giannis in general, because he can do whatever he wants. Like it's not the Bucks situation might collapse, but he is so good that he could finagle his way into whatever situation he wanted to be in. Probably.
I think if you're the Bucks and you've done everything you can to retain Giannis, you're in a good situation. Let's say you can't retain Dame and it's time to move on from Middleton and a lot of these other guys aren't sticking around. That's fine. Why? You have Giannis. I think realistically they have one more chance to build something around Giannis. If you think about the next 5 years, they can build something around Giannis in the next 5 years if this team collapses.
Yeah. Well, the problem is if this team collapses, does Giannis say, I want out? And he's won them a championship.
I mean-
Like they don't know. He doesn't owe them anything. They don't owe him anything.
They've given him everything. His brother's on the team.
They
He's
traded
got
for
all the
Dame when
money
he wanted him. Yeah. Fine.
That's what I
get
mean.
it.
So
But if it goes wrong and he's like, I can't see myself staying. Also, they don't have a ton of assets to trade. That's the other thing. Like, you would need to strip this thing for parts and then go back and retool. It's not like it would be, here's Dame Lillard. Like, you would be getting back picks.
but you would
or
need to take
whatever.
you'd need to take a year or two to build something.
But how do you tell Giannis in his prime, let's take a year or two? It's hard. It's hard to convince any star of that, especially since considering they won the championship 2 years ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago, whatever it was. Like, they've been kind of in no man's land. So then you're going to say another 2 years of that after this year? Like, that's hard to sell. They really haven't been good since the championship because they took a pretty steep fall after it.
No, I think the Middleton injury was tough. I think they were completely irrational in trading for Dame. Similar type of situation with Westbrook to the
Yeah.
Lakers. I think it was like oh my God, we just lost in the first round of the playoffs or whatever it was. We need to make a move. There was no reason to. I think we all see the value of Drew Holiday now and how amazing he was for the Celtics and
Yeah.
obviously an important piece of the Team USA roster that just won gold and everything. So I think the way their roster was constructed, they probably had a better chance to win without making the move for Dame.
I think you're probably right. I think it was knee jerk. They lost, like losing Drew. I think is just, and also they didn't envision the Celtics getting him fine, but like Man, if you could go back, it's in there with the Rush trade of like, if you could go back and undo it, you would. You
But even
totally
like
would.
they didn't envision Drew Holiday ending up in Boston, but like
But it's
even if he doesn't end up in Boston, do you feel that the Bucks, just looking at yourself, do you feel you've gotten better? Do you think you've improved that like overall,
Yeah.
obviously offensively, they're elite. If you have a great game from Dame and a great game from Giannis, offensively you're unbeatable. But
No,
but
I'm
that
with you.
it speaks to like a bigger issue, which is like I feel like every team with a star and a window falls into maybe the same trap. I don't know that you need to make this big move to either like keep your star
yeah,
happy or you think it's moving you in the right direction. And you would think history has given us enough examples of it not working, but for some reason there's
yeah.
teams are still doing it.
Yeah.
I think the next team that kind of is put under the pressure is the Mavericks, and you kind of see them make these moves and scratch your head, but they did just make the finals. So
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, it's a question of what they look like next year. I think that I think the Clay experiment is not smart, if you ask me. Obviously, yeah, Clay could bounce back, look better, his shot could come back, but he was more than a step slow last season and the season before that. Like he hasn't shown progress there. And losing his shot too. Yeah, he's gonna be wide open next to Kyrie and Luca, but
I think KCP would have been a better option than Clay.
Buddy Healed was available. Like the Warriors flipped. I think that their offseason sneaky. Yeah, are they going to win the championship? Probably not with what they've assembled. But I like their moves. Like I think getting rid of Clay and filling the void with better role players, better shooters, that sort of thing. Like yeah, to me, if I'm them, I'm happy. And also, you look at it. Yeah, if you really are that down on Clay, we just weakened a Western Conference up like rival of ours, like someone going for
Yeah,
the championship by adding it. So
yeah.
I don't know. I think the Mavericks are. This is again another weird thing where they. I think it was knee jerk to being so close to the finals, feeling like you had to do something big, and then it backfires. So you're right, Luke. They're definitely in that weird window.
Yeah. Do we want to touch on the Knicks?
Well, that was my other star that I was going to say. Let's look at
Also, off-season winners.
teams are often so focused on keeping their stars happy that they do things that ultimately upset the star. It's just not a thing with the Knicks. There's not one player. I guess Randall, depending on what his contract situation ends up being, he's eligible for an extension. I don't know what that's going to turn into, but he's not your star. Jalen Brunson's your star. You shell out a ton of picks. I'll admit it; it's a ton to go get Mikal Bridges from the Nets. But
Yep.
now Brunson takes 113 million or whatever less than he could have made if he waited a year for the extension. All signs are pointing to Bridges is about to do the same thing and take a ton less. You have your role players, you have these guys. Yeah, you overpaid OG, fine. But you assembled the perfect team to go against the Celtics in particular, but the league.
I think Brunson has done the most incredible job in building a culture in New York of selflessness. And I think when the Nuggets won the championship last year, even the Boston Celtics this year, I think the Boston Celtics were statistically the least selfish team to ever win a championship, right? Everybody contributed at almost identical value. The Nuggets completely built on selflessness.
Yeah.
We sacrificed for the person next to us, and that's what won us a championship. When you think about that, and then you see what Brunson's doing, and you see the guys around him buying in, that's what you want. You want to see this, and I think it's so beautiful. I think I want to give OG a break because he wasn't a part of this Knicks team, right? It wasn't that he was like re-signing with the Knicks. He was kind of signing his first contract with the Knicks. And I like, moving forward, I think the longer we have this team together and the more sacrifices they all make for each other, the more OG will buy into it's my turn to sacrifice. And I honestly, I know there's a lot of questions around Randall because no contract has been signed yet, but you have to believe, right?
Yeah.
You have to. And
Yes and
I feel
no.
really positive about it. I think Randall buys into all this stuff, sacrifice. He made the sacrifice first. Why wouldn't he make the sacrifice again?
Well, I look
And
at him too, and I think, let's say the year goes by and he hits the open market, he's a free agent.
sure.
Is anyone going to give him more than 30 million a year? Especially with the new, tax
Yeah.
apron and everything.
Yeah.
To me, not much more than that. 35. Like I don't see teams shelling out the money because he is like, I think he's what, 28 now, 29, coming on 30. So by the end of that contract, it's going to be, the way he plays so physically, it might not be the best contract. So I don't know who's going to be willing to shell out that money unless it's like a desperate team. And at that rate, are you willing to jump
Yeah.
for that, or would you rather stay in New York and take a little
Win a
less?
championship.
Right. I mean, look at Hardenstein. If it wasn't for an absolute wow of an offer
Yeah.
with so much money in a situation where you could win, I don't blame him for leaving. Like, that was a better financial and
Better
potentially right.
You don't have to pay New York taxes either.
Yeah, so everything about it, I get it. Barring something like that for Randall, which I don't think will exist, to me, yeah, it should be. They should be able to find common ground. I'm like, all right, I'm going to end up needing to take less anyway. I'll do it here. So,
Right.
So you guys are in the they're going to find common ground camp. I am not at all.
but then you trade him.
I'm feeling very pessimistic about it. I don't see him even budging. I think he's going to want as much as he can get, and I think it's going to be a distraction this year, which is a bummer because it's going to take away from all the good things that have been going on. I'm very worried about that being an off-court thing, and I also think that trading him is going to be difficult too. Like I just hope we don't get fleeced in a trade offloading him and we get like appropriate value back if that's what happens. I also don't really want to trade him. I think he's really good.
No, I think he's a
super
really
valuable.
good fit. But I think kind of like you're saying is the value thing is kind of that's a good point too. I look at it from the free agent market where like I don't think other teams value him. I think that's the hard part of trying to trade him too is to your individual team. Like he's obviously 2-time All NBA, multi-time All Star. Like he's a great player. Teams don't value him that way, and I honestly don't think the Knicks technically value him that way. But he brings those stats and that everything to your team. So
He's
yeah,
all NBA.
but you're not going to shell out the assets for the way he plays. Like he's not. All NBA can mean different things in different contexts, and I think his context is so unique that teams don't value him.
Well, he failed the eye test dramatically, in my opinion. It doesn't look good all the time.
But looking at
stats.
but I also think looking at the Knicks postseason, how much of the offensive burden fell on Brunson, and even just Brunson's stats of like open looks, catch and shoot threes, like the percentages associated with them when Randall's out versus in, it makes a huge difference on him. And I think that's something that they were missing. Yeah, other guys were hurt too, so like it is hard in a vacuum to look at it. But I do think having a guy like that shoulders an offensive load and can have the ball in his hands helps on this specific team, and it might not help on every other team. Like, for example, we're talking about the Lakers need to do something. They're kind of desperate. Like, he'd be a horrible fit there. Like, I think a lot of teams you look at, would I want him there? The Heat need to do something. Do I like that? Probably not. Like, there's a bunch of teams like that where I'm like,
Yeah. I think there are two concerns. I think Mike's point of view is very valid, saying I'm pessimistic. He's going to ask for for everything. And if he does ask for everything, you have to think who's making the final decision on these contracts and who's deciding who pays the tax and things like that. And it's Dolan. And what do we know about Dolan? Dolan hates this new CBA. Yeah. He was the only person to say this CBA is ridiculous. I'm not doing it. So if there's someone who's not going to pay the tax, it's Dolan. And if Randall's like, pay me everything, Dolan's going to be like, no. And we're going to have to let Randall walk, which is really scary. But again, we also don't maybe Randall really does buy in, right? Like, what happens if Randall is like, sure, I'll stand in the corner and shoot threes. I'll score 18 a game and let Brunson be the star. What happens if Randall really buys into just being the second best player on a championship team? You don't know, right? Like, I think Randall, when he was younger, wanted that. He wanted to be the guy. He wanted to go somewhere and say, I'm Julius Randle. I won my team the championship.
He kind of did that in New York.
He did, 100%. But this is, he's a father. He's things have changed now, right?
Yeah.
So
no, I mean,
you don't know what type of situation he wants, and
so I like that. I like that mentality. I'm gonna try to adopt.
We have to be fit. I think, I have a teammate at work, and he's a Minnesota Vikings fan and a Manchester United fan. He's like, United is cursed and the Vikings are cursed. I know the Vikings are going through a lot of issues right now with injuries.
Vikings are definitely eyeing down a curse right now. But
So he's like, I'm so upset. This season is gonna suck. And I keep thinking to myself, like, as a Knicks fan, I can't think like that. As
that's
a
why I
Knicks
skipped
fan,
over. I'm wearing the hat.
I need to be amped up. I need to believe. I need to cheer the fellows on. You know, if I saw Julius Randle walking down the street, I need to go out to him and I'd be like, Julius, this is home. We love you here. We need you here, right? And really embrace the team and embrace the city. And that's what we need from the Knicks. And so
I am pumped. I'm so pumped. I know we're 2 months away ish. Yeah. From like
it's basketball season, baby. Let's go.
Well, yeah, I have to skip football season, and the Mets season is crumbling before my eyes. So I don't even think Grimace can save them anymore. So yeah, we're gearing up for basketball season.
I hope everyone's in for basketball season because when it starts,
oh yeah, then we're.
I miss it. The last week of Olympic basketball made me realize how badly I wish it was on.
I love the NBA. I love the NBA.
It's the best.
I think at the top of the episode we were like, we're going to talk about the rookies in the summer league, but here we are. We're coming to the stopping point.
Well, we should try to get on that summer league and rookies and stuff. Like, we should be hitting this a little bit more regularly for sure.
Now that our nights are freeing up a little bit more, we got.
Let's talk about how big of a bust Alex Sarr is going to be.
I know we need to. Oh my god. Absolutely. There's things we got to dive into that we couldn't hit on.
Crazy stuff happening in Summer League. Kevin Knox is back too. Oh my God.
Kevin Knox is back. Summer League legend, Kevin Knox. Yeah.
He's on the Warriors. That's a sneaky move. What happens if he ends up scoring like 20 a game for the Warriors?
If he suddenly is what he looks like in Summer League, just in the league, yeah. Okay. It couldn't happen when he had the opportunity, every opportunity with the Knicks and then with the Pistons.
Yeah.
I don't know. So... Well, Michael, for those of you watching the podcast and not just listening, Michael had to drop off. So we are kind of hitting that point. We will now, because, he's done with grad school now, which that was our biggest hurdle because he pretty much had it every night. So Hoop Troop is going to be back more regularly. Yeah, absolutely. We'll start getting some primers in for next season now that we've done like a little bit of an off-season recap, although there's still plenty we need to touch on.
There's too much to talk about.
So much we need to touch on. But yeah, for now... Thank you, everyone, for tuning in again. This is the Hoop Troop podcast. We appreciate it, and join us next time.